Welcome to Change Spark and welcome to this video, and today's video is really all about three things, three overarching influencers of change with you. So if you're going to make change, any change in your life, from stopping smoking to exercising more to starting to eat healthier to deciding if you're going to change jobs or change industries or careers, no matter what it is, your brain by default answers three questions. It asks and answers them all by itself without you even really thinking about it. So today we're going to talk about not only what are those three questions, but we're going to bring those to our awareness. We're going to start answering them collectively. We're going to start answering them with purpose so we know the direction that we're going to take, and we know if we can be successful with this change that we are contemplating. All right, so that's kind of where we're headed today. So without further ado, let's uncover these three change influence type questions. And the first question that your brain asks by default, that we no longer want it to ask by default, we want it to be cognizant of this question, is: are you ready for this change? Are you ready for this change? That's the first question. When it's talking about readiness, what your brain is really asking, what now you are asking yourself is, hey, is this change important now? Right? Is this change a priority now? That's what we're thinking about when we're talking about readiness for change. So that's the first question your brain asks and answers, and now we ask with purpose. Question number one, readiness. Question number two, this influence question that your brain asks by default, no longer, that you're going to start asking and starting to think about this change, is willing. How willing are you to make this change now? Now, when you think about willingness, what we're really thinking about is agreeable. How agreeable are you to the effort that you have to put into this change? How agreeable are you to the resources that you have to allot to this change? How agreeable are you to the outcomes of this change? Now, when you also think about this idea of willingness, you also need to come up with the sense of how free am I to make this change? Am I forced to make this change? Am I moving in this direction out of my own free will? That's the things that are coming into play with the idea, the influence question of willingness. So the first was readiness, the second was willingness, and the third question that our brain asks by default when we're thinking, when we're contemplating change, is how confident am I that I can make this change? In psychology, this vein that we're going into is this idea of self-efficacy. And what that really means is, how able am I to make this change? Am I confident that, not that this change can happen, but am I confident that I can do it? That I can do it. If you have a high sense of self-efficacy, a high sense of this confidence that you can succeed in it, you have more thrust towards that energy, towards making that change, whatever it is. So we've got readiness, willingness, and confidence or ability. Ready, willing, and able. We've probably heard that before. But here's the catch here. It's not only just asking these questions in general of, how ready am I, or how willing am I, or how confident am I? But there's one step further. And if you remember at the beginning of this video, I said the word gauge. And that's what we're really going to do with these questions now, because there's a little step here, and it's a very important step that if we take it, it will help us uncover how ready, how willing, and how able or confident we are to make this particular change that we want to make. Now think of a gauge, think of a gas, maybe a mile per hour gauge on your car where it's 0 to 10, right? 0 to 10, and you got your needle, wherever your needle is going to go. Think of the question of readiness. How ready am I to make the change of whatever? On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, dude, not ready at all, 10 being, I'm ready to go, where do I sign? Let's go, let's go, let's go. Right? On a scale of 0 to 10, how ready would you say you are? Now with willingness, it'd be the same thing. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, I'm not willing at all, 10 being, I'm willing, I'm willing, I'm willing. Where would you put yourself on that scale, that gauge of willingness? The last gauge we would use would be the gauge of confidence or ability. How confident am I that I can be successful in making this change? 0, not at all confident. 10, brother, let's go, confident. That's the 10 that we're talking about. In this video, or attached to this video, I also have a document that you can download for free that has the 3 gauges on it, where you can literally write in what you think your change that you're contemplating is, and then gauge yourself on this readiness, willingness, and ability or confidence gauges. But if you and I were to have this conversation, if we were sitting at the coffee shop and we're talking about, hey, how ready are you? How willing are you? How confident or able are you in this change? I would ask 2 follow-up questions. And this is where the money is. This is where the power is to these gauges that we talked about. The first question I would ask you, so let's say you've written down your numbers. I would say, I noted that you said 6 for your readiness. What makes you say that it's a 6 and not a 0? Right there in that power question, and I would do that for readiness, willingness, and ability. Right there from that space, from 6 or whatever number you did to 0, that little space, that little gap in your readiness gauge. As you answer that question, you are filling that space with all of the reasons why you are that far, however far it is, that far up the scale. That far the needle of your gauge has turned, and you're supporting with your words, you're supporting that change so far, so far. So that would be the first follow-up question I'd ask you that, and that's powerful as it relates to your number that you selected with readiness, willingness, and ability. The second question is almost kind of in the inverse. I would say, notice that you chose a 6 for readiness. Share with me, what would it take for you to go from a 6 to a 9 or a 10? Right there in your answer, in that small space from 6 to 9 or 10, right there in your answer, you start to develop not only your plan for success, you start to see what success in that readiness, willingness, and ability stages would look like, and you may even identify some barriers to your success with this particular change. So 2 great follow-up questions after you've identified your number. Now you may say, well, Corey, this is weird. Why do I have to choose a number? And it's very important, this idea of gauging your readiness, willingness, and ability. And the reason is a couple of things. First off, if you quantify, by adding a number to it, you've quantified your thoughts, you've quantified your feelings, you've quantified your beliefs about that particular change. Now you've taken out of this realm of I don't know to this realm of here's my number. And based on that, you now can have a conversation on it. You now can think about it even more fully than you did before. And secondly, by answering those follow-up questions that I just gave you, you now start to do what's called change talk. You start to talk about the reasons for change and developing that plan or that momentum, that motion towards satisfying that change. So there you have it. Readiness, willingness, and ability. 3 influencing factors that always influence change or your contemplating of change. So here's my question for you. What change are you thinking about making? On a scale of 0 to 10, how ready are you? On a scale of 0 to 10, how willing are you? And on a scale of 0 to 10, how confident are you that you can make this change? If you want to talk about this more, hit me up on Facebook, message me through changesparks.com. I'd love to talk more about it. This has been a Change Sparks production video. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Here's to your successful change.